so excited about all of our speakers today. We are so incredibly blessed. Anyone ever been to like a Hallmark store and seen a mug or a t-shirt that said life is good? Anybody ever seen any? Give me a nod if anybody has ever seen anything that says life is good. One of those life is good guru folks is our next speaker. His name is Steve, and Steve Gross has been working in this field for 30 years. Began something called Project Joy that has now grown into an international organization. When natural disasters happen, they call Steve. He goes in and not only helps children cope with tragedy, with trauma, with natural disasters, but also Steve's work has really shifted to helping the grown-ups know how to help the kids. He's a master's social worker. He's the founder and the chief playmaker of Life is Good Kids Foundation. Their mission is to spread optimism to the kids and families who need it most. I get goosebumps every time I hear Steve, every time I see Steve. He is a gift. So count yourself very, very fortunate to get to hear him live today. We are really, really excited to have you from Boston. Thanks for joining us, Steve. Now we can hear you. There he is.
Well, I don't want any expectations to be that anybody's going to get goosebumps. I mean, I can't ever guarantee that.
I know it's a high bar, but I have no doubt.
It's a high bar, but no, thank you so much, y'all, for letting me be out here with you all. And, when I talked to Michelle about being here, one of the things that I was saying was I don't really want to lecture. I mean, I think that when we talk about trauma and natural disasters, I see what we're going through right now as a country to be the worst type of natural disaster. It's a human nature disaster. And there's a lot of good stuff in human nature, but we haven't figured out as people yet how we're all gonna to not just get along, but to love each other, to celebrate each other. And I don't want to sound super flowery, but that to me is harder than any natural disaster. I can understand an earthquake. I can go, hey, the plates shifted in the air. I can understand a hurricane. It's hard to sometimes look at the way people treat each other. In this case, based on nothing but somebody's racial identity, color of their skin. And so that hurts to explain that to kids. Explaining the science of an earthquake doesn't hurt that much. Explaining the science of a hurricane doesn't hurt that much. So, but what I was saying to Michelle was, I would much rather this be like questions and we can talk, because someone once put up a sign and I do a fair amount of lecture. I don't like to call it lecturing, but presenting. And they once said that lectures are like stones being thrown at the heads of those who have yet to ask the questions. And so I started to think like, now I would much rather be here to answer some questions. Not that I have the answers. I will have some answers, but they're not the answers for everybody. So
I have a few that can start us off.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. To begin with, can you speak to why it's important for parents, and that means caregivers, grandparents, to present as calm leaders for their kids, especially during a crisis?
Cool. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, I think that talk at Life is Good sometimes about this idea of spreading good vibes. Like what is, you spread good vibes and good vibe. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Lorenzo, represent. I wish I had a t-shirt for everybody. And I won't dare tell you where you can get one if you want one, because then I sound like a commercial. And just to clarify, I'm not on the for-profit side of Life is Good. We have a not-for-profit side of Life is Good. We're called the Life is Good Playmakers. And you know, the Life is Good brand is about creating change, but through art and message and capitalism, a message on a t-shirt. Our work is about how do we support the frontline men and women like yourself who dedicate their lives to building healing, life-changing relationships with kids. So about calm, this idea of spreading energy and vibes, you know, a very wise woman once taught me that in educating children, more is caught by children than taught to children. So if anyone has ever told you like, calm down, you ain't gonna calm down. You know, you hear the words are coming into your verbal lexicon, but the part of your body that's responsible for calming is not through your verbal lexicon. That's why, like, if I'm in a plane, I'm kind of afraid to fly. And, you know, if we get some turbulence, I always think that's the end for me, you know, especially if it gets really bumpy. And I don't listen to what any flight attendant tells me. I won't listen to, like, ladies and gentlemen, please, you know, I listen, obviously, but what I do is I look at them. And if they look calm, shoot, I'm calm. They look scared, I'm all of a sudden becoming a religious person. And so we gotta give that vibe. There was a study done, it was an interesting one, and I think it was Israel. They talked to people being rushed into an emergency room. And they were saying that when they would put people onto, what is it called? The thing that measures your heart rate, the cardio, anybody? Whatever, I don't know. I got a 450. Yeah, EKG. Thank you. So, you know, they would say that people getting into an emergency room, their heart is beating fast no matter what, because they're scared, they're being wailed in, there's lots of energy, there's lots of activity, people are running around, there's sounds and, you know, announcements over the loudspeaker. And then they did this experiment to say that what if somebody who was dressed in a white lab coat with a stethoscope around their neck, obviously looking like they were in charge, what happens to heart rate when that person makes gentle eye contact with them and just walks slowly over to them like everything is going to be just fine? And what it showed was that no matter what, just that gesture of somebody looking like they're in control calm kids' arousal. So it's okay to be scared, confused, frightened, and we can communicate that stuff with kids sometimes. But I always try not to look like I'm out of control, that I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, even if I don't. So I would say that piece about this idea is more is caught than taught. And, you know, if panicking was effective, I'd be happy to panic. But I've never really done a smart thing or the right thing when I panicked. I might have done, you know, you do what you have to do. And then afterwards, when you calm down a little bit, you're like, oh, I should have just, because as you know, with trauma, when we're panicked and we're aroused, we're not always thinking the best with our prefrontal cortex because we're focusing more on survival and threat. So I don't know if that answers the question at all.
Thank you.
If it doesn't, you can just hang up on me or drop me out of the Zoom call.
Never.
All right.
Do you have any advice for how grown-ups can manage their own stress levels around the current issues in the world and how we maintain our calm in order to be calm leaders for our kids, because all of us are experiencing an extraordinarily high level of stress right now?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if I'm a great example because before the pandemic and before all that's been going on to our country about about this bubble up that's kind of opened some people's eyes who obviously I'm looking at folks in the audience and folks in the audience that are people of color, Black and brown people. I mean, this hasn't bubbled up for Black and brown people from what I've heard. This is always there. People go, oh my goodness, it's bubbling up. It's like, it's been here all the time. Now, other people who maybe haven't been aware, now aware. But this isn't new. There's nothing new about this. I think what's really kind of, if I dare say, awesome is the number of people who are mobilizing and coming together to join their voices together, to be heard. I don't think we're going to go backwards. I'm hopeful that this pain and this sadness and this fear will result in change. It won't be enough and it won't be fast enough, but I'm very hopeful, and I'll get to that in a minute about what that means to be hopeful. But I was going to say, before all this took place, I had a full head of hair, and I don't know what the heck's happened to me now, but it's all gone. That's a joke, kind of. I haven't had a full head of hair since 86. But I think that's a very personal, individual question. So what I can do is I don't know what's right for you specifically about how do we take care of our own emotional, psychological, social, physical well-being. I will tell you that I have a lot of self-care practices, and I think I came about that close to cracking. I've been fired from my family homeschool. I used to be the head of learning and discipline and the maintenance instructor and the head chef. But I haven't been particularly good in the homeschool front because I thought I had more patience. But, and I did, I was killing it the first week. I think maybe the first 11 days, and then things have spiraled downhill for me. But I think there's a few, so I'm gonna share kind of a framework of what we like to call a playmaker practice. So, and Paris, talked about joy. It's amazing because joy is a component of the playmaker practice. So we basically say, hey, you can't spread to other people what you don't have for yourself. So it starts with you. You are the instrument. You are the vehicle, especially your body, your soul, your mind. We're all kind of our being. So we got to keep that thing tuned up. And we have different approaches that we do that. But what I sometimes will look at is 4 domains. The first domain being, and not that they're in order of what's important, but I like to talk about joyfulness domain. What do you do, as Paris shared, to bring an enduring sense of positivity, whether they're tiny joys or big joys? Where do you get your joy? And, sometimes when it's hard to find joy, it might be smelling the coffee. I had a guy, I just asked somebody, hey man, I've been really stressed. What can I do? I said, and he said, the best thing for you to do would be to give up caffeine and give up gluten. So I told him, man, listen, I don't deserve the best. What's the second best thing I can do? Because, we got to choose the things that we're willing to do. So joy, what do you do for joy? If it's listening to music, if it's watching a movie, if it's taking a hike, if it's walking your dog, if it's cooking, if it's gardening, if it's reading scripture, whatever that thing, making a plan to say, what am I going to do to get my daily dose of joy? We're aware of getting our daily dose of vitamin C and D and B, but what about, our daily dose of J? And so that vitamin J is important. So for me, I'll tell you one thing that saved me is being out in nature. Paris, I'm not I'm a suburban Jewish guy. I never went camping as a kid. If I see a mosquito, I'm like, let's go inside. But I've changed. Now at 53, I'm like, I got to be outside. When I'm outside, I feel better. So I've been hiking. I can't believe it. And all of a sudden I go out and I walk in nature for an hour, sometimes 2, and I feel better. Now, I don't know if it's the nature or that I'm out of the house and away from my kids, but whatever the combination is, it seems to be working. And it is the nature because even when I walk outside with my kids, I still feel better. So that's the joyfulness, thinking about what are you going to do to bring joy into your life. Second thing, I always call it internal control. What's been going on has made you feel, all of us, I think, feel that we don't have a lot of control. Things are crumbling around, a lot of it's external control. I can't control this virus. I can't control hatred. I can't control racism. I can't control this. And when we have high levels of external control, meaning things outside of us will control our destiny, emotionally, we don't do well. Now, obviously, it's a reality. We don't have control over everything, but we do got control of some things. So what are the things that we can choose to do? What do we have control over? One of my favorite Life is Good shirts was, we can't control the waves, but we can learn how to surf. I can control when I want to shut my television off. I can control that I'm drinking water and eating and trying to get sleep. I can control calling my primary care doc, or in my case, and I'll give you I'm an open book. I got myself in touch with a great therapist because I felt I'm cracking a little bit. I got myself in control with a nutritionist. Now, I'm pretty lucky. I got a lot of privilege. So I can afford to pay for a therapist, even though it wasn't covered in my insurance. And I was able to pay the $200 visit, online visit for the nutritionist. But if I couldn't, we have control also. There's a lot of good resources available. A lot of good, thinking, looking, meditating. So that internal control, what do you got to do so that you feel safe and grounded and powerful? Working out, taking a walk, cooking a meal. So that's the second one. So joy, internal control. Third one I love to talk about is social connection. We should not be social distancing. Obviously, you've heard it. We should be physical distancing. Social connection is one of the most important health producing, things that we have. So how do we connect with people? Whether it's setting up a Zoom call, whether it's taking a physical distancing walk, whether it's connecting with people who you can connect with, whether it's, talking on the phone, whether it's sending a text. I mean, I'm not a big Facebook social media fan. I don't know. I always feel like a little depressed about my life when I look at how well-adjusted and happy everybody else is. So, but I find like making those connections and being around friends and family as close as you can. I'll also give you another self-disclosure piece. I lost my dad during the pandemic, not as a result of COVID. My dad lived a great life, 91 years old. But that took me to some levels of pain that I hadn't felt in a long time. And my dad was my best friend, my role model, the greatest humanitarian I ever met. But I even noticed then in my grieving, getting a note from a friend, hopping on the phone and talking outside to a friend, it changed my physiology. So even if we can't get close enough to hug each other, we can talk. I'm even amazed sometimes, I'm sure you've had it when you're on like a little text thread with 4 or 5 people just sending a little text. I always get on my oldest son to be like, you guys text all the time. Like, text it's no replacement for a phone conversation, but it's better than nothing. So, that social connection piece. And then the last one is this idea of, we call active engagement. What can you do to stay in the moment, not just wish your life away, dwell on the past, or wish for the future? It's very easy to go, I can't wait for the summer to be over so I can start doing this. I can't wait for 18 months, whatever the time frame, when we can go back to whatever the normal was. And I know for me, I never want to go back to normal. There's been some beautiful things that have taken place, at least when I would talk about COVID. And so I don't want there to be COVID, but I don't want to go back to normal of the way I maybe saw and currently see the world. So I think that this idea of being engaged in the present moment, whether it's taking a walk, whether it is mindfulness and meditation, whether it is just being mindful, even when you do something as simple as take a shower, because you could take a shower and not show up for the shower. Like, which happens, I gotta take a shower, whatever. And then, but if you show up for the miracle of taking a shower, the freaking miracle of taking a shower, you're like, I go into this little room in my house and I just turn this thing and clean water comes out. And if I turn it more, the water's hot. Are you kidding me? And then I got this like bottle of stuff that someone figured out how to make that like smells like lavender and cleans my skin, and I can smell it and I can feel the water on my head, and I can sit there and just go, that's showing up for a shower. That's meditation. That's mindfulness. I've taken showers where I don't even remember if I took one. I'll be like done with it and I'm like, did I even wash my face? I don't even remember what took place. So there's a great Zen saying that I love, which says, when making rice, make rice. We multitask so much that we miss the experiences. So when you talk about being actively engaged, like I'm going to make a dinner for my kids. I'm going to make some spaghetti sauce. Shoot, I'm going to focus on making it. I'm not going to come at it with like, oh, I have to make dinner. I'm going to try to come at it with, I get to make dinner. Let me put on some music. Let me cut the garlic. Let me cut those onions. Let me feel the tears and the burn of my eyes. And then let me throw all that stuff away and just open up a jar of spaghetti. Sucks. But so that would be what I would say. Having practice is about staying engaged, staying connected, staying joyful, engaged, and staying empowered. And then just a couple of basic ones. I always talk about the basics. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you staying hydrated? Are you eating nutritious food that fuels you? And are you moving your body and getting your blood flowing and releasing oxytocin, metabolizing adrenaline? But everyone's self-care plan should be tailored to themselves, but I think that the important thing is to have one. Sorry for the long answer, but I tend to be long-winded.
It's so relevant. Thank you so much.
All right.
So in the current state of our world, do you think that quiet action is the same as inaction? Do all actions have to be verbal and visible, or are daily personal actions enough?
Why do you ask me these tough questions?
Actually, I didn't come up.
I'm just joking. I like it. So, let me start with the first thing. Is quiet action the same as inaction? Hell no. Hell no. I mean, I feel like, and I may be wrong, and I'm going to express my opinion. I feel like there's some people just want to make noise to show people, look at what I'm doing. They, and I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying that there's sometimes this push, like if I don't say something right now, somebody will think I'm complicit. Because right now I'm hearing that if you don't say anything, but my dad used to say a couple things to me. One was he would say, remain silent and be thought a fool. Speak and remove all doubt. Now, I don't want to rush to come up with a statement. I don't want to rush to come up with a plan, because right now, man, I don't think best when I'm overly aroused, and I don't need to be a first responder right now. I need to listen. Now, the other thing my dad would tell me a lot was that he told me this when he was giving me advice before I got married. And I've been married now for 20 years. And my dad would tell me, hey, Steve, if you're a loving husband and a caring husband and a doting husband and a compassionate husband, every single day, you don't got to worry about Valentine's Day. And so the actions that we do, that you do every day, that contribute to people who feel marginalized or unseen or unheard or who've been discriminated against, helping them heal, that's important action. And so I would say on that piece that inaction is different than quiet action. But here's the thing, does our action need to be verbal? No. My dad would always say too, and I'm going to always quote my dad, especially now more than ever, he used to say, when all is said and done, more is said than done. So, what we say right now, yeah, it matters somewhat, but you could say lots of stuff. If we backed up everything that people said, we wouldn't have any problems. But I do think that visual, calling attention to the work that you're doing when it's good work, is important. See, I used to think you should be humble. I mean, I still think you should be humble, but hey, do good work, virtue its own reward. Don't tell anybody about it. But if you do some beautiful work with a child, like Paris was showing this beautiful song and this play therapy, and I thought it was fantastic. And then she said, no, I'm not going to make that visual. I'm not going to share that with anyone else. Well, then the only people who benefit from that is Paris and the little girl. Paris, was it a little girl? Little girl that she was working with. But if we make our work visual, good work, not to say, look at me, but to say, look at what we can do. No more looking at me. You know, that's enough. You know, everybody has the answers. And again, I don't mean to sound skeptical, but I've been feeling a lot of push, like, what are we going to write? What are you going to say? What are you going to do? It's got to go out tomorrow. It's got to go out right now because people are waiting and looking. And it's like, I get you, but I want to make sure my lab coat is on. I want to make sure my stethoscope is on. I want to make sure we keep doing the work that we do every day that's important, and that we're not responding out of the need that we have to right now, but more with the spirit of we get to, and we get to do it wisely. So to answer that question specifically, I wrote it down. Quiet action is not the same as inaction. Okay. We can't afford to be inactive in doing good work that helps people, and that our actions don't all have to be verbal, but I would suggest that our good actions, we make them visible so others can be inspired by them. Others can be lifted by them, and others can learn from them, and that we can learn and be inspired and lifted by the work of others.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for asking. Ben, come on over here for a second. No, my son is here listening. He's like, he didn't know I had a job. So he wanted to trust me because I was supposed to be outside playing. I said, no, I get to talk to some friends and colleagues. So I thought he wanted to make an appearance.
Oh, maybe he'll change his mind.
Yeah, if he changes his mind. He got the looks in my family from my wife.
How can we best teach optimism to kids, especially when so many things are very clearly not right, like poverty and racism and injustice? How can we still teach optimism to kids?
Just tell them to look on the bright side. Just tell them everything's going to be okay. Not. First thing we got to do is we got to keep it real. We got to keep it 100. Okay? Or as my son says to me, we got to keep it 100. If I say 100, he's like, oh, you see something. What are you doing? It's 100. So we got to keep it authentic. Optimism, first we got to understand what it is and what it isn't. Optimism, and the type of optimism we're talking about, is not that everything is great. Life is good. Isn't life is perfect? Life is easy. Life is not perfect. Life is not easy, but there is goodness around, and how do we not lose sight of that? See, that's what optimism is. It is about being able to still see the opportunities amidst the obstacles, but it's never denying the obstacles. See, we don't need the everything's going to be okay optimist right now. We don't need the look on the bright side optimist right now. We need the optimist that says now is a time that we can actually create real lasting change. That's the type of optimism. I define optimism as our capacity to see the good, to feel the good, to focus on the good in ourselves, in others, and in the world around us. It is not denying the problem. So when we say, how do we teach kids about optimism? It's about what can we do to make things better? How do we leverage your strength? How do we leverage your creativity to make things better for ourselves and for others? Because when we make things better for others, we make things better for ourselves, because there really is no us and them. It's just we. You know, Daniel Siegel calls it interpersonal neurobiology. We are connected. You want to make a friend? Don't do them a favor. Let them do you a favor. Because the gift that they get from being able to help you, and I learned that. I always try to be the strong guy. So I want to help people. But I didn't make myself vulnerable enough. I didn't tell when I was hurting. I told my kids, man, I want to be a strong daddy. I sat my kids down, tears pouring out of my eyes. Your daddy hurts right now. Your daddy's aching right now, and I'm going to be okay, but I need you to know. Because then when they see me go from hurting to okay, they know it can be done. Mm. So I think the best way is modeling and saying, what we have to offer to the world, how do we look at other people and try to see their goodness? Try to see it from their side. And by the way, that's gotten me into trouble because it's hard for me to see people as purely evil, even when they do purely evil things. So then I hear people talking about, all cops are evil and all cops are bad. And I know, especially as a white man of privilege right now, I got to listen. But I'm like, no, man, there's some goodness in there too. But now is not my time to fight. I want to let people listen and say what they got to say and listen. And then when I'm ready, I ask permission sometimes. I might say, wow, I can feel how much pain there is there. And I hear you. I really do hear you. Would you be willing to listen to something I have to say might be slightly different from that? Are you open to listening? Oh, I've been amazed at asking that question. Even heated arguments, I said, hey, bro, I hear you. I've had people talk to me. I was once in an Uber, and this was a long time ago. They're talking about calling Kaepernick, taking a knee. And the Uber driver was going off. That's so disrespectful to the flag. That's so disrespectful to our country. These guys should never be able to play. And I'm listening to this thing going like, wow, I don't agree with him at all. I didn't want to argue with him. I don't want to argue with people all the time. It doesn't work. So when he paused, I said, wow, thank you for sharing your opinion with me. I said, I got a question for you. Are you open to hearing an opinion that's different than yours? And it caught the guy by surprise, like, yeah. And I said, okay. So I told him my opinion. I told him that I didn't think kneeling was disrespectful. I didn't think that was against the country. I think it was standing up for what our country's made of, which is freedom and freedom of expression, and that we can demand better. And that I would think disrespectful would be spitting or burning or ripping, but kneeling seemed respectful to me, seemed like a tribute. And that's just my opinion. And you know what he did? Interesting point. Thank you for sharing your point. Now that's probably because he wanted a tip, which I gave him. Because I want to get my Uber rating like higher than my wife's. Right now I'm hovering at like a 4.87 because I think I got one bad ride or whatever. But, I really feel like that's an important piece. We have to see goodness in people, even we hold them accountable. But can we be open to entertain that there may be good people who have good qualities on both sides of a struggle, and that maybe the things that make them behave so in a way that produces evil, maybe it's because they're ignorant. Maybe we can help educate them. Maybe it's because they're frightened, and maybe we can help them feel more empowered. I don't know. I mean, I get angry just like everybody else, but my favorite quote around anger is an Aristotle quote. And he said, to be angry is easy. But to be angry for the right reason, in the right amount, and express the right way is not easy. Now, they say that's Aristotle. You can never tell on the internet. I mean, it could have been Taylor Swift or Kendrick Lamar. I don't know. But I believe in it no matter who said it. I don't like to say should. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm disappointed in humanity. I'm looking at what my reasons are. I'm looking at how angry I am, and I'm probably not as angry as many of you because I can't actually feel the anger the same way because I haven't lived through it. And people can say, I know how you feel. Bullshit. Excuse me. Nobody knows how you feel. They can only imagine how they might feel if something like that was happening to them. I thought I knew how people felt when they said, I lost my dad. I'm a compassionate guy. I didn't know how they felt. When I lost my dad, I wanted to call up everyone who I know who had lost their dad, who I offered my condolences and all that, and say, boy, now I kind of got a better understanding of what you might have felt like. So, I think I probably answered some of that question and am saying a lot, but that's how I feel right now, that we have to figure out what we can do with our anger in a way that doesn't destroy us or the people around us, and that actually makes things better, because it's very difficult to fix something that's broken by breaking more stuff.
Wow, can you say that one more time? That was so powerful.
The whole thing? No,
Nope, the broken part.
I'm just joking. Yeah, I think it's so hard. It's hard to fix something that's broken by breaking more stuff. And I know people would disagree with me. That's the other thing that you have to understand is you ain't gonna please everybody. I almost put out a video. I didn't because I want to sit on it, but I sent it to about 15 people. 9 of them said it's the best thing they'd ever seen. 6 of them said, nah, I don't like it. I don't think you should say this. I think you got to say this. And that's why I'm telling folks, if you make a statement or you do something because you think it's what you should do, or maybe you're pandering, or maybe you're doing what your neighbor expects you to do or your family expects you to do, and you get blasted for it, that's going to hurt. But if you speak your truth, your courageous truth, courage, meaning to speak from your heart, and you get blasted for it, hey man, you did something right. Because every time, if I give a speech and everybody loves it, I probably didn't say much. And like all of us, we all want to be loved. I really want to be loved. I don't like pissing people off. And I don't want to piss off. It's not my intention. But if I try to please everyone, I will be untrue to myself. And I think we have to be true to ourselves and figure out how we're going to make things better. And that's what optimism is about. How can we look at a problem and figure out what our contribution can be to make that problem better?
Thank you.
Sure.
We have a question from one of our participants.
Awesome.
Asking how to teach other professionals and caregivers that it's okay for a caregiver to cry in front of a child and show them that they're vulnerable and that is okay.
Yeah,
I hope I said that correctly.
I think you did, and I think you said it. I think I think again, there's 1,000,001 right ways, and I know many of you, could answer that question beautifully. I think that just being able to say that and being able to say what vulnerability is. Vulnerability comes from, I think, the Latin vulna, wound, to actually show that you're open. Like when a dog rolls over on their belly and rolls over on their back and gives you their belly, they're vulnerable because they know, wow, you could hurt me. And nobody wants to be wounded. But if we try to always protect ourselves and look strong, well, we don't get to form those same bonds. So I think that what I would say, just me personally, is that it is okay to show our humanity, to show our vulnerability, to cry. What I would probably add, just my 2 cents, is I think there's a difference between crying and losing complete control. So I think, I don't mind crying to my kids. They see me cry many times. I would feel less than comfortable if I completely got hysterical in front of my kids, because then they might feel like I'm out of control and who's protecting them. So I think that if you're mindful, if you're thoughtful, if you're in control and you can say, I'm going to show vulnerability and I'm intentional about it, that is different than just kind of melting down. So I say we want to be careful about that, putting it mildly, especially as a clinician, and as a parent. But it is okay. And I think it's actually not only okay, I think it helps kids to see your humanity. And then it also shows them, hey, if you could do it, even my dad or even my mom gets scared and sad and cries, and then they see me 20 minutes later and I'm okay. The message becomes, wow, our emotions, they're impermanent. They change. This too shall pass. The tears will pass. And I think it's also important to remember, my dad taught me that the joy will pass too. Usually people say this too shall pass when they're feeling bad because they want to be hopeful that they're going to feel good again. I like to say it when I'm feeling great. I like to say it when I'm cuddling my little girl and I'm having this great time with my little boy. And then I think, hey, you know what? Someday they may not want to cuddle me like that. This is going to pass. I already embarrass my kids. Dad, I remember the first time I heard that. Dad, don't say that. Don't wave to all my friends. don't give my friends fist bumps. They think you're weird, you know? And I remember when I was the coolest thing on the planet to my kids. So I know the good times, it's important to know those are going to pass too, because the sad realization, but it's also important. And maybe I'm just saying this because I'm still a little bit raw with grief, is that we just got to accept as human beings impermanence and uncertainty. And that's a hard journey, and I'm working on it. I ain't there yet. I'm still looking for immortality and complete 100% predictability, but I don't think I'm going to find it. So I'm going to decide to become a little bit more flexible.
As always, I'm so inspired by you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't know if you had other questions.
I don't see any other questions, but I'm not monitoring the Facebook. My colleagues are monitoring the Facebook. At this point, I would invite you just to give us any closing thoughts if you have any.
Well,
I'm so inspired. Thank you.
Oh, cool. Thank you. I'm inspired too. I'm inspired by being part of your community. I wish we were all together in a room together, and someday we can do that. I would love to do that. You know, I'm a big South Jersey fan. I heard good things. You know, you all hang out at the Jersey Shore. I got a friend.
You have a big thing here.
Yeah. But one thing I would say is, Michelle, if you email me on Monday, I can give you a link to our Playmaker 101, which is called, I think it's called Harnessing the Power of Optimism. It's a 3-hour course, but we created it. We fixed it so it's virtual now, just to adapt to the environment. And I would say it's a really exceptional online course. It takes about 3 hours to complete the whole curriculum, but you have as long as 2 weeks, and it's very interactive. There's a lot of cool videos, a lot of good stuff. So if you email me, I'll send you a link that you can send out to anyone who would be interested in, you know, in participating in that. And my closing thought would be, you know, just to remember to take care of yourselves first and foremost. This is a hard time. I think Paris summed it up. We sometimes don't know when the adrenaline is building up and building up. I think I've heard some weird study, I don't know, where like if you put a rat in hot water, they'll jump out of it if it's really hot. But if you just heat it up gradually, they won't notice it and they'll die. And I think we've been getting gradual, you know, whether you can call it trauma. I mean, I think it is for some folks, but just this cumulative stress and lack of connection and problems and violence. And sometimes you don't notice it until it hits a tipping point. And just like the first time the iceberg pops out of the water and you go, oh, there's an iceberg there. Well, no, it's been building for a long time. So I would see if we can address that stuff before we hit a tipping point, and just keep doing the good work that you do. And, you know, I believe we can and we will make things better. And I believe that it won't happen fast enough. So I'm ready for that. But yeah, that's my closing thoughts.
Thank you for your generosity. You guys have no idea how exciting his training is. I am fortunate enough to have been through the entire Playmaker training in Boston. So I am an official Playmaker, Steve Gross style. And it is some really phenomenal material that can shift your mindset on how to help kids heal, which is, I think, what we're all committed to.
Awesome.
So thank you for that generosity.
So
thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for listening. There is no greater gift than to actually be of service. The fact that when Michelle asked me if I would, you know, speak, it was like, wow, thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity, because I'm at my worst when I feel like there's problems going around and we're not doing enough to contribute to them. Mm-hmm. So having the opportunity to even make a small contribution is something I'm very grateful for. Thank you for that. Good luck. I'm going to have to leave. I can't stick around for the whole
workshop. Go play with your little guy.
Yeah, this is our Saturday. So I owe them a bunch of time.
We're very, very grateful that you were generous enough to join us today.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. Thank you. Everybody, instead of clapping, you can nod your head. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. We're so grateful.
Yeah, thank you all.
Good seeing you, brother.
Good to see you. Hey, Lorenzo, thanks for representing. I got mine on, you know.
Always, you know.
You know, people give me dirty looks now with a peace and love shirt. Like, who you kidding? So I say, hey, man, we can.
Softest on the planet, though.
Yeah, I get you. I get you. All right.
All right, man.
Thank you.